simultaneous linear equations. So let us start the recording first of all, and then I will discuss about the matter. Welcome to another class of numerical analysis. And in today's class, the topic of discussion is simultaneous linear equations and how we can solve simultaneous linear equations. There are two broad categories of solution techniques: direct methods and iterative methods. For today's class, we are going to be concentrating on direct methods, and under this, we'll look at two different methods known as Gaussian elimination method and the Gauss-Jordan elimination method. So let us now begin our discussions with this flow diagram. This flow diagram actually shows us how one can proceed from a problem definition towards the solution of the problem and its implementation in a societal form, in a societal context, in a step-by-step or sequential manner. This might seem familiar to you because we have already discussed about this in quite a bit of detail in one of the very first lectures of this course. Seeing that we are at the moment in the domain of numerical analysis, the important thing here for us is here. That is the solution of the mathematical model or evaluation of the mathematical expression that has been derived. Obviously, this mathematical model is an abstract representation of a physical system, but here it is expressed in terms of certain equations or expressions. Once those equations are formed, then the next job is to solve those equations and see how the system actually behaves. So these equations or expressions are basically indicators of system behavior. And we need to solve these equations or evaluate those expressions to see how a system actually behaves. What is the behavior of the system? Now, obviously, if you talk about equations, there could be many types of equations. Just a moment. So as I was saying, if we are talking about equations, there could be different types of equations, such as nonlinear equations or system of simultaneous linear equations, maybe differential equations, the ordinary form or partial form. So there could be many variations of many types of equations. And obviously their solution techniques would be different. We have already seen one such case, that is solution of nonlinear equations. But today, what we will be concentrating on is another type of equation or set of equations, which is known as a system of linear simultaneous equations. And we'll look at how these system of equations can be solved. So first of all, let us try to see what this system of linear simultaneous equations is. Or rather, what is a linear equation? Now, a linear equation is one where the variables involved in the equation do not have powers of more than 1. So that means if x is the variable, you do not have terms such as x square, x cube, x to the power 4, and so on. What you also do not have is product of two variables. So if an equation has two variables, maybe x and y, then you would not be having product terms such as xy or x square y or xy square, like that. So those would make the equation a nonlinear one. However, in generalized form, if you see an equation of this form, that is a11 x1 plus a12 x2, like that, going on to a1n xn equal to a1 n plus 1. So this is an example of a linear equation. Example of such a linear equation you are probably familiar with. When we write equations of straight line, we write y is equal to mx plus c. So this is an equation which is linear in form. Now, what if there are a collection of such equations? So a collection or a group of two or more linear equations which involve the same variables, same set of variables, then that is known as a system of linear simultaneous equations. So what do we have here is n number of equations with n unknowns. The unknowns are obviously the same in all the equations. So x1, x2, like that, if you go up to xn, so these are the unknowns, and these unknowns are involved in this n number of equations. So same unknowns are present. You can see x1 here, x1 here, same for x2, going up to xn. Maybe some of them might be missing from some of the equations, provided that the coefficients of those terms are 0. But mainly, these n equations would be involved in these equations. So that makes up a system of simultaneous linear equations, or you might say linear simultaneous equations. So this is the system of equations that we are interested in, and we'll be trying to find out a method, generalized method of solving such system of equations. As already mentioned, this is a system of n equations in n unknowns, where the unknowns are the xi's and the coefficients are the a terms. So aij, these are the coefficients. So obviously a11, a12, a21, these are all the coefficients. On the right hand side, you see the terms represented as ai n plus 1. In some books of numerical analysis or even some mathematics books, you will find the right hand side represented as bi's. So that is just a matter of representation. You can go for any one of these two representations. Now these sort of equations, that is system of linear equations, simultaneous linear equations, usually occur in different fields of science and engineering, and they describe the system behavior of varying number of physical systems. In fact, in our numerical analysis course, we have already come across a situation where we get a set of linear simultaneous equations. Can you remember where that is? Anybody? When we performed linear regression, least square fitting. So at the end of it, we had obtained a system of equations from where the regression coefficients were to be found out. Remember that? A0, A1, A2, these coefficients were to be found out. And those coefficients were part of a system of linear simultaneous equations. So when you get such a system of equations at the end of the least squares fitting step, or towards the end of that step, then you need to solve for those coefficients, regression coefficients, A0, A1, A2, like that. So you can quite easily apply the techniques that will be discussed in today's class in solving those equations, or those that set of equations, and find out the regression coefficients. So that is one practical example or practical application of the system of linear simultaneous equations and its solution technique. Now, one very simple example of this is given over here. This example is probably from our school days. When we start learning about algebra, then probably we have come across this example, and we know that how we can solve for this equation. This is also a system of linear simultaneous equation in two variables, two unknowns, x and y, and hence we have two equations to solve for these two unknowns. Can you remember the solution technique? The solution technique for such linear simultaneous equations may be method of substitution, where you actually express one of the variables in terms of the other, and then substitute that one variable in the other equation. So thereby getting rid of the second variable, and from there you can very easily solve for one of the variables. For example, in this system of equation, 2x plus y equal to 4, x minus y equal to minus 1, you can express y as x plus 1. Taking the second equation into account, we can write y is equal to x plus 1. And then we can replace y in the first equation, or substitute y in the first equation, so that it gives us a linear equation in x. And from there, what you will see that x will come out to be equal to 1. And then it's a very simple process to find out y, which is equal to 2. So this is the method of substitution. What about method of elimination? We can multiply the second equation by a factor of 2, both sides. So it becomes 2x minus 2y equal to minus 2. And then you can subtract it from the first equation, so that the x variable gets eliminated. After multiplication with that factor, both the equations have a coefficient of 2 for the variable x. So if you subtract it, that gets cancelled out. So from there, again, it's a very easy step to find out what is y. And then you can find out x. So these are the techniques that were taught to us in school at the preliminary stage. Later on, when we learned about or we got the knowledge of determinants, concept of determinants, then we also came across something called Cramer's rule, which is based on evaluation of determinants. Now, I'm not going to discuss about what exactly is Cramer's rule. You can probably go back and refresh your memories of your school days from any basic mathematics book. But the problem with Cramer's rule is that it involves a lot of calculations. A lot of arithmetic operations are to be performed for this to be correctly implemented and for you to obtain the solution. And that is okay for a small number of simultaneous equations, maybe 3 or 4, and it works quite satisfactorily. But if the number of equations increases beyond that, it becomes 6, 7, or even 10, then the number of arithmetic operations involved in such cases would be quite huge. In fact, if you have 10 number of equations, following Cramer's rule, you will have to perform around 70 million arithmetic operations in order to obtain the solution. That is a huge task. In fact, for all of these three methods of solution, they can be implemented by hand only if the number of equations are small. Think about method of substitution or method of elimination. If you have 5 equations, by hand to implement method of substitution, it is going to be a laborious task. It's going to take a lot of effort. Same for method of elimination. And if the number of equations goes beyond that, if it becomes 6 or 7 or close to 10, then the effort required to implement method of substitution or method of elimination would be astronomical. In fact, it's quite impossible to do such things by hand. Not only that, another disadvantage of these methods are that they are not conducive to implementation through computer program. These cannot be generalized as such. However, I should also mention that this method of elimination is in fact slight variation of it, in fact, can be implemented through computer program. And probably you might have guessed from the names of the solution techniques that we are going to discuss, that is Gaussian elimination, Gauss-Jordan elimination. So those are basically a sort of elimination technique. Not exactly what we have learned in school, but obviously you can say a certain extension of that. Obviously, there would be certain elements of elimination technique in it, but the procedure would be much more generalized. So as I have already mentioned, there are two types of generalized techniques for solving simultaneous equations. One is the direct method, and this is, again, just now I mentioned that it is based on elimination of unknowns or variables to transform the set of equations. Now, after transformation, what exact form it takes, that we will discuss later on. In fact, depending on the form that it takes after the elimination process is completed, that is what differentiates one method from the other. In Gaussian elimination, there will be one form. In Gauss-Jordan elimination, there will be another form. I would just now mention that in Gaussian elimination, we obtain a triangular form, whereas in Gauss-Jordan elimination, we obtain a diagonal form. We'll discuss about those two in detail later on. But the second method is known as iterative method. And here, these are basically successive approximate procedures. Details about these iterative methods will be discussed in the next class. However, for today's class, we will exclusively concentrate on the direct methods. Those are based on certain elimination techniques. And the first technique or solution method that we will talk about is Gaussian elimination. This is one of the most popular techniques of solving simultaneous linear equations, and it is designed to solve a set of n equations having n unknowns. The form of the equation, the set of equations you can see over here. So you have n number of equations. This is 1, this is 2, like that you go up to n, and you have also n number of unknowns. So x1, x2 going up to xn. The right hand side is constant. So this can be represented as either a1 n plus 1, or sometimes it is written as b1. So b1, b2, like that, you can go up to bn. Now this Gaussian elimination technique, it consists of two steps. First, there is forward elimination. Then there is the second step, which is backward substitution. But before we go on to that, let me just also mention that these set of equations can be represented in matrix form. How we can do that? We can write these coefficients in a matrix like this. A1n, this is A21, A22, going up to A2n. Like that, we can continue till the nth row. This is AN1, AN2 goes up to ANN. So this is a matrix containing all the coefficients of the variables or unknowns. And these variables or unknowns themselves are put in this column vector x1, x2 going up to xn. And that is equal to the right hand side, which you can write as b1, b2 going up to bn, or in terms of a. So this matrix is known as coefficient matrix. You can also write it as AX equal to B. So this matrix A is called the coefficient matrix. This is the vector of unknowns, and this is the right hand side vector. So this is the matrix form of the n equations in n unknowns. Why is this important? This is important because you would, while implementing the computer program, you would want to take the input as an array. That would be helpful in doing this program in an efficient manner. So that's why try to keep the form of this this matrix representation of the system of equations. It will help you in doing the program implementation. Also, another thing that becomes clear is that why these are written as A1 n plus 1. So you can probably, while taking the input, consider this right hand side vector as part of this matrix. So you will add an extra column over here where you take input of the right hand side. This coefficient matrix this M is not being written here. What is the problem? I don't know. Okay, so that's coefficient matrix. This coefficient matrix here is n cross n. However, if you include the extra column over here on the right hand side, that gives us the right hand side vector as well, those constants over here, then the input matrix becomes n cross n plus 1. Anyway, those are all to do with the program implementation, which we'll come to later on. Now, as I was saying, that this Gaussian elimination contains two steps. One is the forward elimination. In this step, what we do is we eliminate certain unknowns from these equations. But there is a method to it. We do not do it haphazardly or arbitrarily. So what method do we follow? We eliminate the unknowns in such a way so that the system of equation transforms into a triangular form. Now, what is that? What is this triangular form? It means that we try to eliminate the unknown x1 from all the equations except for the first one. We try to eliminate x2, that is the unknown x2, from all equations below the second one. Like that, we will proceed, and when we come to the nth equation, then we see that all the unknowns have been removed from it except for the last one, that is xn. So it means that from the second equation, we eliminate one unknown. From the third equation, we eliminate two unknowns. And like that, we proceed in such a way so that when we come to the nth equation, we have only one unknown left. So one unknown eliminated from second equation, two from the third one, and so on. Finally, n minus 1 unknowns are eliminated from the nth equation, leaving behind only one unknown. And what is the advantage of that? You can simply calculate what is the value of that unknown by dividing the right hand side with the coefficient. And once you have done that, you are actually at the back substitution stage. So that is the second step or second part of the Gaussian elimination procedure. So here, starting with the last equation, one by one, each of the unknowns are evaluated. So now you are proceeding in the backward direction. You are going from the last equation to the second last, and then the one before that, like that, you go back to the first equation itself. And in each of these steps, you calculate one unknown value. Here, those unknowns which are already evaluated are substituted into the previous equation so that only one unknown remains in each equation. So from each back substitution step, from each of these equations, you actually determine one unknown. Now, it might seem just a little bit complicated or difficult trying to imagine how these steps would be implemented. To make it clear, we illustrate this Gaussian elimination procedure considering three simultaneous equations in three unknowns. What that system of equation would look like? It would be something like this. You can see that there are three unknowns, x1, x2, and x3. Corresponding coefficients are given as aij's, where both I and j vary from 1 to 3. The right hand side is represented as a14. Remember that it is ai n plus 1. So we have three equations, n is equal to 3. So the right hand side would become a14. Second equation a24, and the third equation it becomes a34. So at the end of the forward elimination procedure, this is the triangular form that we would obtain. You can see one unknown has been eliminated from the second equation. There is no x1 related term over here. Whereas in the third equation, both x1 and x2 have been eliminated. So this last equation contains only one unknown. And quite simply, you can get x3 by doing the calculation a34 by a33. That is simple enough. And once x3 is known, then you can go back to the previous equation and find out x2. That is part of back substitution. And you will move in that manner towards the first equation. So when you arrive at the first equation, both x2 and x3 are known to you. So what is the unknown here? x1 is the unknown. And you can simply calculate it by substituting the values of x2 and x3 in that first equation. So as a procedure, this is now probably clear to us. But how do we actually do it? How it is to be done? So let us try to explain that in a bit more detail. The underlying principle here is the method of elimination. So we will consider one equation, multiply it with some factors, subtract it from the other equations in such a manner that one of the unknowns is eliminated from those equations. Here by elimination, what we mean is that the coefficient of that particular unknown would have to be 0. Then only that term related with that unknown would disappear from that equation. So let's see how we can do that. In this 3x3 system, we'll consider the first equation as the pivot equation. And we'll divide it by a11 and multiply it by a21. Then we'll subtract it from the second equation. So what we have done, we have divided the first equation throughout by a11, multiplied it by a21. Then we are subtracting it from the second equation. So what happens? Something like this is obtained. You can see that this is the division. Throughout, you can see in the denominator, a11 is present. So all these terms are due to the division by a11, and there is this multiplication of a2. So we can say this is a multiplying factor, not the minus, of course, taking only this part. So that is a multiplier. You can see that if we carry out this calculation, a11 and a11 gets cancelled. You are left with a21 x1. So when you subtract it from the second equation, which has the first term as a21 x1, that obviously gets cancelled out. So this is equal to 0. And we can store the others as like this in the same variable. Let's see. So the equation now becomes a22x2 plus a23x3 equal to a24. Remember that this a22 over here in this modified equation, this one is not the same as this a22 because there is some arithmetic operation that has been performed on that term. So these two, a22 will not be equal to one another. Although here the representation is retained the same, they are not same in actual value. Same for a23 and a24. their values have been modified. Similarly, we can eliminate x1 from the third equation as well. What we'll do here, we'll divide the first equation by a11 and multiply it by a31. So here the multiplier changes. Now the multiplier is a31 by a11. So that is the multiplier. Quite obviously now it reduces the first term in the modified third equation to 0, and we have a32x2 plus a33x3 equal to a34. So this step of forward elimination is carried out with respect to the first equation. So this first equation is known as the pivot equation. Let me write it here. This is known as the pivot equation for the first forward elimination step. And this term a11 is called the pivot element, because with respect to that, the others are getting changed. So at the end of this first forward elimination step, we get a system of equation which is like this. You can see that it is getting transformed towards a triangular form, but it is not complete yet. So what is to be done next? Now we will choose the second equation and the third equation and eliminate x2 from the third. So here the second equation would now become the pivot equation. We will leave the first equation as it is for now. We will not touch it anymore. So we start with the second equation. We designate the second equation as the pivot equation. A22 would be the pivot element, and with respect to that, we will modify the third equation. How do we do that? We divide the second equation by a22, that is the pivot element, and multiply it by a32 and subtract it from the third equation. So here I repeat again, pivot equation for the second step of forward elimination is the second equation. The pivot element is a22. The multiplier is a32 by a22. And once this elimination is done, you have this simplified third equation, a33x3 equal to a34. So that is the final form of the set of equations after the forward elimination has been carried out. How many steps in this forward elimination? 2. Because there are 3 equations, n is equal to 3. That is why there would be 2 steps in the forward elimination procedure. So that makes it, if you have n number of equations in a system, then forward elimination would consist of n minus 1 steps. Why is that? Because obviously you are not going to use the last equation as a pivot equation. Last equation would be the one, because there are no equations below that, the last equation cannot act as a pivot equation. So there would be n minus 1 steps in forward elimination procedure. Now what about back substitution? We already have this system, this triangular form. Why is it called a triangular form is pretty easy to see. You can see that this actually looks like a triangle. So that is why it is called a triangular form. So from the final equation, we get x3. We go back to the second equation, the previous one, with x3 known, and we can find out x2 following this expression. Notice that on the right hand side, everything is known. All the coefficients are there, and the term, the unknown, you can say previously unknown, x3 is present there. The value of x3 has been found out in the previous step. So you can just simply substitute it over there and find out x2. Then you go back to the first equation, and here you can express x1 as this expression containing x3 and x2. Both of them are known from the previous steps. All the coefficients are known, so you can find out x1 quite easily. So that completes the procedure for back substitution. So this is how Gaussian elimination is implemented. Now, of course, we cannot talk about a specific case. We have to keep the generalized nature of the problem in mind. So what we have to implement finally is the forward eliminations steps for n number of equations, and then the back substitution for the same n number of steps, or rather n minus 1 steps, I think. But the first step is to eliminate the first unknown from all equations after the first equation. So all rows below the first row will be involved in this procedure. As already mentioned, the first equation is called the pivot equation, and the pivot element is the first coefficient in first equation. So that is A11. So that is the pivot equation. And once we divide it by A11 multiplied by A21, we have the modified equation here on the right hand side. Then you subtract it from the second equation. That's what happens here. I think there is no need to explain this in detail. You can see what happens through these calculations by yourself. One thing that you should notice here is that in the second equation, when you have subtracted it, here x1 term has not been mentioned because that is obviously going to 0. This coefficient is going to 0. Remember what we discussed in the 3x3 situation. So that equates to 0. So that's why x1 has been totally dropped. We start from x2. And that equation in shortened form can be written like this. So A22 dash x2 plus it goes on to A2n dash xn equal to B2 dash. Now what is this dash all about? This dash actually indicates how many number of operations have been performed on it. So we have performed, it has gone through one step of forward elimination. So that is why this single dash is present. Now the next, you would have to repeat the procedure for this forward elimination technique, starting from the second to the nth equation. So we leave the first equation as it is. We do not take it into our calculations anymore. And we consider from the second to the nth equation. So now the second equation would be the pivot equation. That is going to be used to modify the equations below it. Once that step is completed, then we'll leave both first and second equation unaltered, untouched. We'll start with the third one. Consider the third equation as the pivot equation and modify the equations below it with the help of the third equation. So if you continue like that, you will finally obtain something like this. So here you can see the second step of the elimination procedure, where the second equation has been considered as the pivot equation, divided the second equation by a22 dash. We have multiplied it by a32 dash and then subtracted it from the third equation. That gives you a33 double dash plus a34 double dash x4. Like that, this equation would be obtained. Notice that here are two dashes present in this equation. Why two dashes? Because these coefficients have gone through two forward elimination steps. That is why there are two dashes. So the next steps of forward elimination would be conducted by using the third equation as a pivot equation and so on. And as already mentioned, there would be total of n-1 steps in this forward elimination procedure, at the end of which you will obtain this triangular form. If you look at this triangular form and pay attention to the last equation, you will see that there is a n-1 term written above this coefficient, a(n) n-1. That is not a power, by the way. Those are just representation of the dashes. So here, this second equation actually went through one forward elimination step. So that is why a single dash. The third one went through two forward elimination steps. That's why two dashes. The next one would have had three dashes here for the coefficients. Like that, it will continue. And the last equation on this would have gone through n- number of steps of forward elimination. And that is why this n-1 is present here as a superscript. This is not a power, by the way. Just indicates how many number of forward elimination steps that coefficient has actually gone through. I hope that is clear. Up to now, any questions from your side? Is the general technique of the forward elimination procedure clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, clear.
For all of you, it's okay? So no questions from this. Fine. So we should move on now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
স্যার একটা এক্সাম্পল দিয়ে ডেমনস্ট্রেট করলেও ভালো হতো।
What I will do is I will give you a problem to solve. Okay. You do it yourself.
ওকে স্যার।
Nothing like doing it by your own hand and solving the problem. Okay. So by the end of the class, I will give you the problem. Let us now continue with the steps that are left for this Gaussian elimination technique. By the way, here we have to consider the program implementation as well. So if you are asked to do an algorithm for this forward elimination step, how would you approach it? Now, there are quite a lot of things to control over here. For example, the pivot equation keeps on changing from one step to the other. So there would be n minus one number of steps in forward elimination. Each will have different pivot equations. So that is one varying factor. Next, you have to consider that with each pivot equation, you will have to operate on certain number of equations. When the first equation is the pivot equation, then you have to operate on all the equations below it. So one by one, you will have to accomplish that step. So that needs to change as well. So number of equations in each of the forward elimination procedure, each of the forward elimination steps would change. That is again another varying factor. And of course, in each equation, you will have to cater to different number of terms. There are quite a few terms in each of the equations. So all the terms need to be modified according to the arithmetic relationship that is developed on the basis of the pivot element and the multiplier. So that needs to be taken care of as well. So obviously you will need a certain number of loops. Basically, you will have to go for nested for loops. Sorry, go back. Yes. But now the question is, how many? How many for loops? We have just now outlined three different things that you need to vary. So let us connect each of these varying factors or parameters with a for loop. So we will require 3 for loops to implement this forward elimination technique, and those would be nested for loops. So first of all, we'll start with a for loop here. Let's say for k equal to 1 to n minus 1. Just a moment. Okay, let us continue. So there are n minus 1 number of steps in forward elimination. So that needs to be taken care of. So first of all, we'll take care of that. We'll write a for loop to vary from 1 to n minus 1. So this will control the steps of the forward elimination. So first forward elimination step, then second one, then third one, like that it will continue. So you will need to also write in steps of 1. Then forward elimination step, you will have to change the equations also, because with this as the pivot equation, let's say we consider this as the pivot equation. So that means this is the second step of forward elimination. At this step, you will have to modify all these equations that are present here. So all these equations need to be modified. So the second for loop would consider that. Now this I would vary from, you cannot write from 1 because the first equations or the equations before the pivot equation would remain unaltered. So if you are at the second step of forward elimination, you start with equation number 3. If you are at third step of forward elimination, you start with equation number 4, like that. So quite simply, we can write I would start from k plus 1 because k controls the forward elimination step. It goes from 1 to n minus 1. So we'll start I from k plus 1. So when k is equal to 1, I would be automatically 2. When k is equal to 2, I would be 3, like that. And how far it would go? It would have to go to the last equation. Last equation is n. So that is where it will end, obviously, in steps of 1. And at this stage, you would have to fix the multiplier. Because the multiplier would change for different equations also. So the multiplier would be written as A ik by A I. So if we consider the second equation here, that means I is equal to 3 and k would be equal to 2. So multiplier would be A32 by A22. When this I changes, this multiplier would change as well. So like that, for different equations, you will obtain different multipliers. Now we come to the third for loop. This for loop takes care of the different terms in
Sir,
the equations.
Sir, ওটা ki হবে না মানে 2 1
Which one?
ওই মাল্টিপ্লায়ারটা
Multiplier would be
aik or sir aki
aik. Yes, this is going to be akk, not aii. Now you see, when this is I is equal to, let's say k is equal to 1. So I would be equal to 2. So this is A21 by
উপরেরটা মানে ki
A1.
বলছিলাম a ki নিচেরটা ঠিকই ছিল স্যার এ ik এটা করেছেন ওটা তো ki হবে না ওইটা বলছি
No, why should it be
2 1 আছে
2-1? That's why it is coming out to be 2-1.
তাহলে
K-
ki হবে না কারণ
No.
k টা তো
K is 1. K is starting from 1.
1 নিয়ে না ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে
Okay. So when k is 1, I would be equal to 2. So that would be A21. Okay.
এবার ঠিক আছে ঠিক আছে
ঠিক আছে? Okay. Now we come to the third one, which controls the terms in the equation. So let's write it as J would be equal to, it would start from the kth term. So we'll start from k. It will vary to n plus 1. Why n plus 1? We have n number of coefficients and the n plus 1th term is the right hand side vector. That also needs to be modified with the same multiplier. So that's why it goes to n plus 1 in steps of 1. Inside this loop, actually, you will modify the coefficients according to this expression. So aij will be assigned the value aij minus the multiplier into akj. You will end this second loop and the third loop. So this implements the forward elimination step in a generalized manner for n number of equations and n minus 1 steps of forward elimination. Now, if you look at this expression, what I would request you to do is consider the n equal to 3 situation and try to find out what would be the exact expressions here. One I can obviously write out for the first pivot equation when k is equal to 1, I is equal to 2, and let's say j is equal to k, so that is equal to 1 as well. So what it will be, aij means a, I is 2, so 2 1 would be equal to a21 minus a21 by a11 multiplied by akj. Both k and j are 1, so this is a11. This gets cancelled out, goes to 0. We know that the first term would go to 0, and that's what happens exactly here. You can try with the other terms as well, and you will see that it will conform to the expressions that we had seen in one of the previous slides. That I would leave as a task to you, and that would also crystallize the concept of this algorithm in your mind. So do carry it out and see how this algorithm behaves and it compares to the steps that we had written by hand. Now we come to the back substitution stage. Here, obviously, the equations are going to be solved starting with the last one and moving upward. Only one unknown is present in the last equation after the forward elimination procedure. So it can be very easily solved directly like this. So simply divide the right hand side vector by the modified coefficient, you will get the value of x1. Now the second last equation, that is the n minus 1th equation, has two unknowns, xn and xn minus 1. And one of them is already known. Xn has already been calculated in the last step, that is the previous step. So that reduces the n minus 1th equation also to one unknown only. And again, it can be solved directly. And this happens for all the previous equations as well. As you go backward, in each of these equations, all the unknowns except for one would be known to you. So the process, if repeated sequentially, going backward with each equation providing solution for one unknown, you would find out the set of unknown values starting with xn going up to x1 in a backward manner. So that is why it is called back substitution. And the expression, that generalized expression that you need to implement in case of your programs, is given here. Do notice that there is a summation term over here. You have already come across summations in quite a few of the previous numerical techniques. So I hope that is not going to be a problem for you. So you have to implement this summation, deduct that summation from the modified right hand side and divide it by the modified coefficient. That would give you the value of xi. Just remember here that in order to implement this for loop, you will have to go backward. That means you are going to start with, let's say, I equal to n minus 1. And you will go back to 1. So the for loop here, to implement this expression, that will be n minus 1 to 1 in steps of minus 1. You are going backward. I hope I would not have to discuss the summation again, and I would leave that up to you, because we have discussed this in, I think, in case of two different numerical techniques. So I would leave the algorithm for the back substitution for you to find out. If you have any problems later on, of course, we can discuss about it. Now, finally, we come to the disadvantages of this Gaussian elimination procedure. Now, one disadvantage is, of course, division by 0. Remember that while calculating the multiplier, we have a division term. What we had written, a ik by a kk, isn't it? That is the multiplier. Now you do not have any control over this term a kk. This could easily be 0 or very small. And if that is the case, then it creates a problem. Obviously, division by 0 would give you an error. And division by a very small number also creates certain difficulties in implementing the numerical technique. Also keep in mind that there are a lot of arithmetic operations being performed. So it is quite possible that in the original equation, none of the pivot elements were 0. However, in course of these arithmetic manipulations, one of them may go to 0, and you do not have any kind of control over it. So this is one of the disadvantages of the Gaussian elimination technique. If that happens, this technique would not work correctly. So you can see here, it is possible for division by 0 to occur in the course of the forward elimination procedure. And it may happen if the pivot element in the original equation is 0, or during the forward elimination, as the coefficients are modified, the pivot element may go to 0. So there are two possibilities, and both would create the same kind of problem. And even if the pivot element is not 0, but quite small in magnitude, that is very nearly 0, then also it could lead to large errors in the solution, and it might render the result meaningless. So that is one issue with Gaussian elimination. The other problem is the round off error. This is supposed to be a direct method, an exact technique, and those methods are usually prone to round off errors. This is particularly true if there are large number of equations present. So quite a few, or you can say numerous calculations need to be performed, and as a result of it, the errors usually propagate. Also, you are performing certain subtractions. So along these mathematical, or I should say arithmetic procedures, the errors would be propagated, and it could create very large errors in the final solution. So those two are the issues or negative issues associated with the Gaussian elimination technique. Now, in the forward elimination procedure, we have to make sure that the pivot element is not zero or not too small. In order to avoid the problem of division by zero, we must take care of it. And that can be done through a technique called pivoting. Let us now discuss what is this pivoting technique. So it is also seen that the maximum accuracy is obtained if the pivot element is largest or maximum in absolute value of all the elements below it in the column. So you have the column of say x1s. Out of those coefficients, if the pivot element is the largest, then we have the maximum accuracy. Now, how do we ensure that this should happen always? So this is the say equation, set of equations. One forward elimination step has already been performed. So now in this step, in this intermediate step, let us look at the coefficients of the unknown x2. So you have a22 dash, a32 dash, like that. So what is the pivot element? Pivot element is a22 dash. If this is not zero, or if this is not too small, then there is no problem. In fact, the best result is obtained if this a22 is maximum out of these all these other coefficients. So if you consider all of them, if a22 is the maximum or largest, then we obtain the best accuracy. So in terms of an algorithm, what we can say is the condition for avoiding division by zero and very small numbers is that this akk, in this case this a22 dash, should be greater than all of the other coefficients which are below it in this column. So we can express it like this: akk should be greater than amk, those are the absolute values, for m varying from k plus 1, this is k plus 1, to n. So what we can do during the forward elimination procedure, we can search along this column and find out where this maximum element is present. It may be a32 dash, maybe that a32 dash is greater than a22 dash. Then what we'll do, we will interchange those two equations. That means we'll move it here and we'll bring it down here. A simple interchange between the two equations. And that is not going to change the system. The order of the equations is not a matter. So the solution would remain the same. So what is the procedure? At the beginning of the kth step of forward elimination, we have to find the maximum out of akk, ak1 plus 1k, like that, going up to ank. So out of all of these, in this example, we'd have to find out the maximum. And if this maximum value is a pk, that means it appears in the pth row, which is in between k and n, then rows p and k are to be interchanged or switched. This process of picking the largest element as the pivot and interchanging the equations is called pivotal condensation. This is a very important aspect of Gaussian elimination technique. Usually, when programs are done, this pivoting step is introduced in the forward elimination procedure. However, there are certain situations when during pivotal condensation, it is found that all the values of AMK for m varying from k to n is less than a predefined small quantity, let's say epsilon. That means all the coefficients in that column are indeed very small. And if that happens, then that constitutes an ill-conditioned system. And if it is an ill-conditioned system, then no useful solution can be obtained. That is a problem. So that is a limitation. That brings us to the end of the Gaussian elimination discussion. Next, we'll quickly move to the Gauss-Jordan elimination and see how it differs from the Gaussian elimination technique. In this Gauss-Jordan method, it involves elimination of unknowns again from the different equations, but the final form is not triangular. Remember that in Gaussian elimination, after the forward elimination step was completed, we obtained a triangular form. But here, we do not obtain a triangular form. In Gauss-Jordan method, the system of equations evolve or transform to a diagonal form. Remember that coefficient matrix? So in that coefficient matrix, only the diagonal terms would be present. All other terms would be equal to 0. So that is the basic essence of the Gauss-Jordan method. Now here, the steps of the elimination process are quite same. You have a pivot equation. With the help of that pivot equation, you modify the other equations. But the difference is that we not only modify the equations below the pivot equation, but also the equations above the pivot equation. In Gaussian elimination, we only changed, altered, modified those equations which were below the pivot equation. That is how we obtain the triangular form. But here, in Gauss-Jordan method, we will also modify the equations which are above the pivot equation. So that is the basic difference between the two methods. And once the elimination process is completed, only one unknown remains in each equation. So that means there is no question of implementing the backward substitution technique. After the elimination process is over, all the equations can be solved directly to give the solution for one unknown each, because all the equations would contain only one unknown at the end. So as you can see, solution is obtained without using the back substitution technique. So here we have n equations in n unknowns. This is the same set of equations that we started with for the Gaussian elimination method. And the first step of elimination would consider this as the pivot equation, the first equation as the pivot equation. That would be the pivot element, So A11 is the pivot element. And we would eliminate x1 from all equations below the pivot. So how is this different from Gaussian elimination technique? It is not at all different. For the first step of the forward elimination, or you can say simply elimination technique here, it is exactly same as the Gaussian elimination process. So once that is done, all the coefficients of x1 below the first equation goes to 0. Those are eliminated. Now we go to the second step of the elimination process. In this second step, we will select the second equation as the pivot equation. A22 dashed here would be the pivot element. And we would now apply this, or will modify all the equations below it, below this pivot equation, and the equation above it as well. So we eliminate the unknown x2 from all equations below as well as above the pivot. This is where it deviates from the Gaussian elimination technique. We do not keep the first equation, the equation above the pivot, as unchanged or unaltered. We will also modify that. So as you can see, due to changing the first equation, we now have a 0 over here. So the x2, the coefficients of x2 has disappeared from all the equations below as well as from the one above the pivot. Also note that there is a dash term that appears on this first equation as well. These coefficients are also changed because we have made the modifications to the equation above the pivot as well. So these coefficients have also been modified. That is why this term goes to 0. In the third step, what we'll do, we'll use the third equation as the pivot, and we'll try to eliminate the unknown x3 from all equations below as well as above the pivot. So at the end of n-1 steps of the elimination process, we have this kind of a setup. This is the final form. By the way, I think here there would be a dash over here. But one thing that should be clarified is that although these coefficients have been modified, in value, these will change. These things will change. This coefficient is not going to change. I'm talking about in terms of its absolute value. Can you tell me why?
সাথে তো কিছু মানে মাইনাস হবেই না, ওটা
মাইনাস হওয়ার তো জায়গা নেই স্যার।
There is nothing below it. All of it has been removed in the first elimination step itself. So how is it going to be modified? It is not going to be modified for the first one. Obviously, this will be modified because these terms are present at the moment. So these things will get modified, but there is nothing below it. So A11 dashed, you can just keep it as A11. This A11 dashed would not get modified at all. So that's why this dash has been removed from here. So you can see that in this diagonal form, each equation has only one unknown. The first equation has x1, the second equation has x2, this is x3, and this is xn. So it's quite simple. Xn would be equal to bn divided by ann. X1 would be equal to b1 divided by a11. So directly you can solve for these unknowns.
স্যার বেসিক্যালি ইখিলন ফর্মে আনলাম ব্যাপারটাকে।
Yes, yes. You have a diagonal form here, not upper echelon form or lower echelon form. You have a diagonal form.
Yes, sir.
So if you write this in terms of a matrix, you have A11, you have A22 dashed, like that, go to ANN n minus 1, and all other terms, these will be zeros. Like that. This is b1 n minus 1, this is bn n minus 1. Again, n minus 1 is not a power, but it represents how many times this right hand side constant has been modified. So as only this diagonal is present here, this is known as the diagonal form. So that is how the Gauss-Jordan method actually works. That brings us to the end of the discussions regarding the elimination procedures, that means the direct methods. In the next class, we will discuss about the iterative methods. And that's all for today's class. Thank you.
স্যার একটা ডাউট ছিল।
Yes, বলো।
স্যার এনটা কি ইউজার ইনপুট হবে না প্রিডিফাইন্ড হবে?
কোনটা?
এন মানে কতগুলো স্যার ভেরিয়েবল থাকছে?
Yes, it could be user input. It could be user input.
স্যার কেন তার উপর ডিপেন্ড করে তো স্যার প্রোগ্রামটা পুরো চেঞ্জ হবে?
Yes, of course. It has to be a general procedure. You can write Gaussian elimination program for 3 variables, 3 unknowns, or 4 unknowns, or 5 unknowns. But it is always good to make it much more general. So n would be user input. You can put 3 or 4 or 5 like that. But of course, the problem would come from the allocation of array space. So you have to provide the array dimension while writing the program, right? You have to declare it. So how much it should be? If the array is denoted as A, that is the coefficient matrix, then whether it's a multi-dimension array, 2-dimension array, of course. So whether it should be 50 cross 50 or 100 cross 100, that you have to decide. And you have to give the intimation to the user as well that what is the maximum limit of n. You can ask the user for an input to n, that is number of equations, but also at the same time, you should mention that n should not be greater than, let's say, 50. There should be an n max value that the user has to adhere to. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay.